Hey everybody, it's
Hey.
Rip City Real Talk, and we are back. It's been a little while since we've recorded. There is a lot going on right now in Blazerland, and we are super excited to bring you our thoughts on this Nance trade. How you doing, my
Yeah.
best friend Anthony Blaylock?
Hey man, doing all right, doing all right. I'm still reeling from the loss in our cornhole tournament.
Yeah.
That was a thing that happened over the weekend. That's not something we lose often. So still reeling from that, but it's been busy. Got fantasy football drafts left and right. It's been a lot to focus on. I definitely needed some Blazer news to get me roped into Blazerland, and we had some pretty big news over the last week since we recorded.
Huge news. Yeah. Last time we recorded, so we weren't really down, but we were doing a summer ball recap. We're talking about what are we going to do at power forward. And you and I have both said all summer long that power forward is an issue. And we thought that it was going to get filled via trade. And holy cow, did we trade. So you want to recap the whole thing and tell us kind of your first initial thoughts on it?
Yeah. So for those who don't know, I haven't heard yet. Larry Nance Jr., I should say. No disrespect to his father who played in the 80s. So Larry Nance Jr. got traded to Portland. We gave away a first-round pick, lottery protected. So if we're in the lottery, we're good. If we're out of it, it's now Cleveland's. We also traded away Derek Jones Jr. So we made that happen. It was a three-way trade where Cleveland got Larry Markkinen, and then I don't know where the pick went. I think the pick went to Chicago. With Derek Jones Jr. And then they traded away Markkinen and we got Nance.
Yep.
So as you said, big need, definitely a big need. We talked about it with Steve when he was on the podcast a couple weeks ago. We've touched on it throughout really the offseason with a bunch of guys that we kind of brought up, the Paul Millsaps of the world. Obviously, I was a big guy who wanted Markkinen on the team. I don't know how the fit would have worked, but as far as who was out there, a guy that I really would have liked, but out of nowhere, Larry Nance Jr. popped into place for this Portland roster.
Yeah, it is interesting, right? And so, just real quick, we're going to go through the trade really in depth. But what was your just first hit reaction when you heard that? Because it was a little out of left field. The timing of it was kind of weird.
I woke up and got my Bleacher Report alert on my phone, and then ESPN and all that good stuff started popping up. I was like, "Whoa!" First reaction. Yeah, you know where I'm going with this. Goodbye, Derek Jones Jr. Bye,
out, DJ.
Goodbye.
Poor guy. You hate him.
So, yeah, that was my first reaction. Thank goodness that bum with his defensive rating of 114, the defensive savant who was brought here to be something who wasn't anything. Okay, listen, that's kind of mean. That's disrespectful to him. I don't mean it in a bad way, but honestly, I never liked him. I didn't think he was a good fit for the team. Larry Nance immediately gives you all sorts of flexibility. He gives you defense. He gives you passing. He gives you three-point shooting. He's a 36% shooter. You and me play a lot of fantasy basketball. We do a couple of leagues. So we get to kind of see some of these guys, most of these guys in the league statistically perform night in, night out because we play against them. We watch them. We check guys on waivers, etc. So we get a good picture, statistically speaking, of a lot of what these guys do. And Larry Nance has always been one of those guys that we've either owned or had on our bench or what have you because of the fact that he puts up such good stats, not just offensively, but also defensively. He gets, almost 2 steals a game. Not quite a shot blocker per se, but has the athleticism to make it difficult and to get up and do that if he needs to, if he's in position. 100%.
Yeah. And I think the thing about Nance is, so one of our biggest complaints and one of my chief complaints from last year was Melo. I hated everything Melo brought. Well, Larry Nance Jr. is almost the exact opposite of that. And here's what I mean. He can help facilitate your offense by running pick and roll with Dame. He can pass out of the short roll. He can find open shooters. He's going to be a very athletic, long, rangy defender. He's going to help. He is everything Melo was not last year. And he's also really young. He's relatively inexpensive, and he's under contract till 2023, which is interesting to me. What did you think about what we gave up? Because I don't care about a first round pick right now. We're in win now mode, and power forward was a position of need. How did you feel?
I think I saw somebody say it on Twitter, and I don't know who it was at this point, but it made me laugh. But essentially, here's the deal. If you do what this team should do, that we hope does every single year, if this team goes in and is a playoff contender, gets to the second round, hopefully gets to the Western Conference Finals, at least competes. I still don't think they're really a title contender. Sorry, hate to say it. CJ's here. Until you get a Dame another true star, I just don't really see us competing. I hope we do, but it's gonna be tough sledding. But as long as we continue to show improvement, hopefully that makes Dame want to stay around, right? Makes Dame want to stay around. He wants to keep working with Billups. He likes where the team is progressing. He finally says, go ahead and trade CJ. Let's do it. Whatever. If that's the case, then we're going to be out of the lottery, in which case a first-round pick isn't going to be useful for us. I mean, you're going to get another Anthony Simons or Nasir Little. Great. They got potential. They're athletic. I like them for where we picked them, but they're not needle movers. Those are very rare to find in the second half of the first round or second round, etc. So, great. If you don't do good, well, quite frankly, Dame's probably out anyway. And if Dame's out anyway, then you're going to get all sorts of first round picks. You're going to get him. You're going to turn around and get him right back, because I guarantee you he brings a haul back, at least 2, I would assume, amongst a player and all those other good things. So really, if you're doing what the team should be doing, the first round pick won't matter, because it'll be higher up in the first round. And if you're not doing what you're going to be doing, then you're going to get plenty of first round picks back, because Dame potentially wiggles his way out of Portland. We don't want to hear it, but that's the reality of what could potentially happen. So yeah, the pick doesn't matter. I mean, whatever, throw it in there.
Yep, I'm fine with it. I mean, we've already covered the part about Derrick Jones Jr. I was a little more of a fan of his potential, but it didn't manifest last year, and that's totally fine. We have an abundance of wings at this point. I wouldn't say, I mean, because the problem is, okay, where is Derrick Jones Jr. going to play next year? Norman Powell is going to start. I think that we need to test the waters a little bit, and I would like to see more of the Tony Snell minutes than I would Derrick Jones, because I feel like shooting is going to be more crucial in some of these bench lineups. Now, let's talk about Larry Nance real quick. Where does he play? Because I don't think he starts. Where do you envision him playing? What type of minutes? What type of role? So talk to me about where he's going to slot into this team.
He's going to be exactly what you said, Carmelo Anthony. He's going to play backup 4. He's not going to start. There's people out there, I've seen it on Twitter. We've had some friends bring it up with us.
No.
He's not going to start, because you just paid Norman Powell a bunch of money to come back, presumably to start. He probably took less money than he could have gotten elsewhere. To come back, because I think he got promised a starting role, whether it be small forward or whatever.
Sure.
And as long as CJ McCollum is on this team, he's not going to the bench making $30+ million a year. That is not going to happen. So you're going to run small. Now, you could say he's probably a better fit maybe for this team than Rocco. That's what you can come out here and do. But I still think Rocco is a better defender overall, just with his length. I think Nance is a fine defender, but Rocco is a better help defender. And with him and Powell out there, I think you have a pretty good lineup already. The chemistry is already there between those guys. Rocco was the one guy that I could see maybe bumping back to the bench in favor of Nance, but I just don't see it. I think Nance comes into that second unit. I think he plays 20 to 25 minutes. That I still think happens. I think Rocco will kind of shift around. And if he's not hot hitting the 3, you'll probably put Nance out there to play bigger minutes. You could very well see Nance coming in closing situations, just like Carmelo did. Depending on the lineups that you're playing against, if they're a little bit bigger, you might move Powell and Rocco around and try to find a lineup there that gets Nance in there to help with some bigger guys.
Yeah.
Also, I think he's going to be the perfect fit for foul trouble. So if Nurk or Rocco do happen to get into foul trouble, or Powell, he tends to foul here and there because he plays an aggressive style of defense.
He does.
You start moving guys around, and Nance can fit in seamlessly there. So the roster flexibility is ridiculous. And even more so if Dame, CJ, or Powell get hurt and miss an extended amount of time. We lost CJ for quite a while last year.
Yeah.
It's happened. It can happen again. If that's the case, and one of those other guys has to slide to point guard or shooting guard or what have you, you imagine Rocco goes down to the 3, and I can easily see Nance starting, and actually kind of like the lineup potential that's there. Personally, I'd rather just trade CJ away, start Powell at the 2, and then run back with Nance and Rocco, or include Rocco in a trade and get another forward back. I don't know. I'm not going to go down that path right now, but the point I'm trying to make is the flexibility this roster is going to have is through the roof. He gives you a legitimate athletic forward who can play big minutes and do a little bit of everything, and can fit into pretty much any scheme that you want him to fit in.
So versatile. We talk about guarding 1 through 4. He can guard kind of 1, mostly 2 through 5 he can guard. But the thing about Nance is, and here's what I like. So most of our wings and guards can shoot really well, right? Most of them. All 3 of our bigs, I don't really count Rocco as a big. He can play power forward, but our 3 bigs all can pass. So what you're going to see, no matter who is in the game, it doesn't matter. You're going to see us spread out on the wing, and then we're going to run pick and roll with Dame. And let's say Norman Powell's in the corner. Okay, great. He can hit a shot. So Nance is going to hit him in a short roll situation. Rocco, same thing. Tony Snell is a really good three-point shooter when he's wide open. Ben McLemore is a sniper. It's to me, there's so much potential for this offense now. And we haven't even really talked about Dame or CJ breaking people down one-on-one. There doesn't need to be as much isolation ball anymore. I think that Larry Nance and Nurkic are both going to pass a lot more, and Chauncey is going to encourage them to pass more. So I just love the fit, man. I think Larry Nance is fantastic. I understand he's not like some max level player, and he's not an amazing forward, right? He's not an all-star level forward, but I do love what he can bring, and he is exactly what we've been asking for the last 3 years to pair with these guards.
Yeah, because imagine without Derrick Jones, the result of that's probably going to be more Nasir Little at the small forward position. Yeah. I'd imagine he's going to get more minutes now. They didn't play him in summer league for a reason, because they felt that he's ready to make that move and get on this roster. He didn't need any more time with the coaches, etc. So I thought he was probably going to play power forward before this in the backup role more than anybody else at this point. But now with Nance coming in, he gets to kind of be more of a freelancer. I'm interested to see his role. He's been improving his shot. We've seen some videos that have come out recently of him hitting threes. He looked good last year when he took threes, and I think now he won't have this much pressure to try to perform on the defensive end. He can really just use his athleticism and his size to go out there and disrupt plays and passes and let Nance kind of anchor him down low with Zeller. And on top of that, we didn't have a lot of ball movement in that second unit. Anthony's been improving every single year with his distribution. It's looked good. It's looked better. But now you can have Nance go in there and work pick and roll with Amp and do the same type of offense that you want to do with those starters and really move that ball around to get the ball to the guys like Schnell and McLemore and Little and whoever else you want out there shooting the ball. Anthony Simons personally is a great three-point shooter, so now he can play that game with Nance, run around, get open, hit some spot-up shooters. So
it's dope. I think it's a great fit. And then so the other side of the ball is defensively, like you said, he is the thing about Nance is he's so versatile, but I think he was second or third in deflections last year. Yeah. He was up there as far as deflection rate, not overall deflections, but as far as deflection rate defensively, he's really good with the steals. He's long. I guess he's only like 6'7", 6'8" is what they're saying, but he plays bigger than that. He can play small ball 5, and I have no problem with him doing that. Let's say like Zeller gets hurt and he needs to play more backup 5. He can do that. He just fills the need. And I think that this is a trade that maybe it doesn't elevate the ceiling massively, but it gives us what we desperately needed, which is more depth, more passing, and more defense. He checks the boxes in every single aspect.
He also checks the box in Neil O'Shea's particular favorite category that doesn't show up on the box score. Yeah. He is he didn't win it, granted, but he was in the 2018 second place slam dunk contest. So
forgot the dude can dunk.
From trading Derrick Jones Jr., a slam dunk champion, mind you, for Larry Nance, who was in the slam dunk contest. His dad won the slam dunk contest back in, I think it was 84, in the 80s at some point. So you got that kind of athleticism coming back. He honestly reminds me almost of a poor man's with a little bit better passing, Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon. So, a trade that we missed out on that a lot of people really wanted. He gives you that kind of athleticism. He gives you the ability to shoot about the same rate. He can go up and dunk over people. Is there any cons that you see to this? Because I know a con that kind of glares right in my face, like a shine just right off somebody's window that's just right in your face.
Well, I told you all 3 bigs play a similar style of ball. All 3 of our bigs are very, very prone to injury, but all 3 have had a super hard time staying on the court. So I think that the number one is durability, right? I think that that's something that's going to be difficult. I do love what they all can, what especially Nance can bring defensively. I like the idea of a 6th man thing where he comes off the bench and he can be aggressive and get into foul trouble because it really doesn't matter. He's a 6th man. But for me, it's durability. Do you have another weakness off the top of your head that you can see?
That's completely it. I mean, with Nurk, obviously having injuries the last couple of years, his aggressive defensive style leads him to foul a little bit more. Obviously, Zeller, he hasn't played 60 games in 2 years. And then Nance, again, with our fantasy basketball side of things, we know darn well that the guy doesn't play very much. That's another thing that he struggles with, his health. Hopefully being here in Portland to change the scenery, just a little more amped up, a little more energy will help fix that. I'm not sure how, but sometimes these guys kind of get in these lulls with their roles, and they tend to do something dumb with their body and they get hurt. So hopefully here that doesn't become a situation that we have to worry about.
Yeah.
But that is the one negative thing for sure.
We'll see. And the other thing is, so the other point that I'd bring up is he's never played with a shooting lineup of this caliber.
Mm-hmm.
He played with LeBron in Cleveland, so he has played with good distributors and good ball handlers, but I don't think he's ever played with as lethal shooters as we have on this team. So it'll be really interesting to see. I'm telling you, what he can do is he can draw the defense in a little bit and then find that open person really quickly and decisively in a way that we have not seen a Blazers big. I mean, Nurk is good too, right? But he doesn't pull the defense out because he's not a league average 3-point shooter the way Nance is. I mean, Nance, if he's open, he'll hit it. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I wanted to get your perspective on this because I'm kind of interested. So I was really happy with Nance. And then another like side of the trade thing opens up, and it basically comes out that this happened because we were inquiring about Markkanen. Now you're the world's biggest Markkanen fan on the Blazers. So tell me what you felt like. What did you think of that? And would you have preferred that side of the deal, and why?
You put me on the spot. Yeah, it came down to us not wanting to offer a second round pick in addition to the other assets, the Jones and the first round pick, which I think is just crazy, but whatever. Mm-hmm. That's tough for me to say. I love Laurie. Don't get me wrong. I think Laurie can shoot the ball. He's got a better, back to the basket game than people think. He can score in a lot of different ways. He's not that big of a deal defensively. People give him a bad rep because he's known as an offensive guy and a shooter.
Yeah.
But he really can actually play good defense. He's tall enough and athletic enough to be in position. But no, I think after sitting down and looking over things, I like Nance more if he can stay healthier, because I think he gives you passing, which is one thing that you're not going to get with Markkanen. And honestly, Markkanen to me is not a bench player. When I was thinking about this, I honestly would have liked to see him start. I was definitely enamored with that thought of him going out there with his play style with Nurk, two big guys. One can spread the floor and Nurk can operate down low with basically nobody else out there with him. But that was also kind of around the same time we brought back Powell, and he just doesn't fit into the starting lineup unless you move CJ or Powell. So it's not going to happen. He would have had to be a bench guy. And I think for the money and for the role and what we kind of need, which is distribution and defense, I think Nance fits it a little bit better. So
yeah, I agree with that. I feel the same way. I like the shooting, but it's just on this team, it's a redundancy we don't need exactly. So it just reminds me of he's more of like the LaMarcus, Melo, and we just don't need that position right now. The other side of the coin, so Derek Jones Jr. leaves, we lose a first, we didn't give up a second. The contract for Nance isn't terrible, and then some other report comes out of left field, and they're talking about who was the other one we were going to try to acquire? We were inquiring on before this deal happened.
Yeah, we attempted to make this move happen. I don't know the specifics of what was offered, but I imagine it was more or less along the same. This is obviously what they were trying to pitch was Jones and probably that first. But before they went with the Nance Markkanen conversations, Dylan Brooks was the other one. So a lot of Portland fans probably know all about Dylan Brooks, not only from his time in Memphis being a pest. Let's put it that way. That's one way to put it. An emotional player who's been in our face, and it's good as a dog while he's on the court in a good way, not a bad way. He's just one of those players that's high emotion, a lot like Gary Trent. He reminds me of him in a lot of ways. You also might know him because he obviously played for the Oregon Ducks and had a good run there for the Oregon Ducks.
Final Four, I think they went to.
So Dylan Brooks was the other option. That one was more interesting to me. I didn't like it as much because I felt like we talked about it. We think power forward, just bigs in general was a bigger need. Need because bigger, taller. Anyway, but I would imagine if you do that kind of a deal, you would have had to probably throw in McLemore or Schnell to me because you have an abundance of these guys that don't really work. Now, you could easily play Brooks at small forward, which is probably what they would have done, and they probably still would have played McLemore and Amp with him out there. But then you still have Little playing your power forward and Zeller obviously in that lineup that gets the majority of the minutes together. I don't know if Brooks would have been happy going to a bench role. He's been starting in Memphis. He's been playing very good in Memphis. And B, he's kind of on the smaller side for a potential small forward as far as overall. He's a lot like Norman Powell in that kind of a capacity where you can play it. He plays big. but I just don't see him
Yeah.
wanting to run into that role. So it came out. Neil tried, apparently. I would have, again, I imagine it's the same type of deal. Memphis said no, and rightfully so. I mean, you're not going to
Yes.
give away a starter for a guy that's not going to start for you. I think they like what they have in Brooks right now with the shooting, the defense. His mid range is getting better and better. I mean, he looked great last year going into playoffs and all that. So that was the other move that was made. What do you think on that? I mean, would you have liked to see Dillon Brooks here? Was that a move that you wish would have been executed?
Yeah, I love Dillon Brooks coming out of college just because I watched him a lot at Oregon and I know what he can bring. But the more I watch him in the NBA, the more I don't care for his game on this Blazers team. I mean, if you were to trade CJ and you could start Dillon Brooks on the wing, side by side with Dame and Powell, if you could start like a combo of that backcourt, that'd be fine. But with Dame and CJ and Powell, where is he going to find minutes? It doesn't make a lot of sense. I do think that Anthony Simons is going to make some type of leap this year and play at least a decent amount of minutes. I just don't think Dillon Brooks fits on this team. He would bring a toughness that I would love to see in a defensive edge, but I don't get it. I like Nance a lot more. I think Nance is a lot better on both ends of the floor for what this team needs. And contractually, it just makes more sense. He sort of fits the age range of this team, and he's right. He wanted to come here too, and that's the thing I love about Nance is he wanted to come to Portland. The Blazers edge thing came out, he sort of like helped make that happen.
He helped make it happen. And he fits the, like we were talking about, you've named off that you wanted Green here for a long time. You wanted Draymond here. I talked about Millsap being a cheap vet that I would like to be in Portland. And along with the same reasons, decent defense, rebounding. I mean, Nance gets 7 rebounds a game.
Yeah.
Last couple of years, he's averaged about 3 to 4 assists a game, which is incredible for a guy in his position playing 20-something minutes a game. And he's efficient. He shoots 50% from the field, including 30% from 3. That is ridiculously good for a guy on your bench to come in there and play power forward and be able to hit 50%. Those are center numbers. Those are guys that sit around the rim and just dunk a bunch and get layups. That's amazing for efficiency perspective. So great move for him. I'm happy with it. Wouldn't have liked Dillon Brooks in Portland. I like Dillon Brooks as a player. I don't have a problem with his attitude. I think it's emotional. I like the passion that he puts into the game. And, he's generally a pretty good guy. And then marketing, Bud, I'm sorry. I wanted you. I did. But I didn't know that Nance was available. I'll be honest with you. Like, I'm talking to some of these power forwards that were out there.
That's funny.
I think Nance does more of what we want him to do. So that's all I really have to say on that. Do you have anything else to add, man?
No, I thought it was interesting that Neil was working all these deals, and it's nice to hear that he's still working behind it because I think that everyone in Blazerland was relegated to thinking that we were done, right? And even you and I think on the last pod said, okay, we're at whatever 14. This is a 14-person roster, and we're going to roll some Greg Brown out there this year, and it's going to be kind of weird. But Larry Nance is a legitimate sixth man, and I think he's going to play a lot of minutes. I think he's really comfortable playing 24 to 26 minutes a game, and that's I think what he's going to get on this Blazer team. Now, if you lose Nurkic, let's say, for half the season, then you never know. I mean, Nance, who knows? Zeller is, I think, a very capable player as well. But I loved hearing that we were making moves, and I loved hearing that we're inquiring still. I think that was it, but I think this is the best move of the offseason other than signing Powell. I mean, getting Nance on this kind of a deal, I don't give a dang about the first. I am excited for what's going to happen, and I'm ready for the season to start, man. October, it's coming.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're going to talk about that in a moment, but before we do, my friend, it's the greatest segment in all of Blazers land. If there was an Emmy for podcast segments, we'd definitely be considered for nomination at this point. So this one's for Dia. Dia from the Dave and Dia podcast, amongst all of the other wonderful things that she does. Yeah. This one's for you. I told you I was going to do it. So V Blazin' New Trails, ex-player of the we can still call it a week because we're going all weird with our schedule. Right now, it's the week. All right, still the week
of the show.
Nope, this is a recent player, somebody that we all know pretty well. Honestly, one of my favorite players when he was locked in on our team, Mo Harkless. Mo Harkless is the Blazing New Trails player. Headband Mo played with us 2015 through 2018. Part of the run to the Western Conference Finals, a pivotal part of that run to the Western Conference Finals back in 2019. I guess he played the 2018-2019 season technically. Yeah. So is it kind of transitioned? But yeah, he's the player. He's the guy. The news, just in case you all wonder where he's at nowadays, he's been all over the place. He went to the Clippers for a little bit. He spent some time in Miami.
Yep.
He got traded last year to the Kings.
Yeah.
So he's in Sacramento. He re-signed with the Kings on a 2-year, $9 million deal. So congrats to him. We're going to see him opening night. Actually, we're going to get to talk about that in just a moment. So we'll get to see him bright and early. Hope he's still rocking the headband Mo. One of the best. And that's probably my favorite Mo Harkless moment was when he took the headband off and just threw it to the crowd.
Yeah.
Just tossed it aside. He got a $15,000 fine for that. Ejected from the game with like 19 seconds left to go. So that was against the Thunder back in the day. That was when they had, Westbrook and George, and I'm all for him throwing his headband in the crowd against those guys. So that's my favorite moment. Okay,
man.
You got any good Mo Harkless moments you want to share with the people?
As far as Mo goes, it's just he was one of my favorite Blazers during that era. I loved Chief, and I loved what Chief could bring, but Mo always felt like he had a higher ceiling, and the two of them were so devastating on defense. When you combine Mo Harkless's athleticism and how long he was, I feel like he was probably like, and you have a lot of these too, right? Guys that are just low key your favorite Blazer. They don't score 25 to 30 points a night. They don't put up the big rebounds or the big assist numbers. Mo was not really a stat stuffer, but man, he was a beautiful defender. And I always feel like we sort of made his career what it was because Mo was going to be kind of a role player, a really small role player. And for the Blazers, he was pivotal, absolutely crucial to those lineups. So
yeah, he had the issues there for a while, the locker room issues. He was upset about playing time.
Yeah.
Another great example of Dame's leadership and being able to kind of wrap guys in and get them in the right mindset. When he finally figured it out and he was just accepted his role and he put that headband on. I mean, it was a whole different player. I mean, the energy plays, the steals, the putback dunks on the offensive rebounds. He hit his fair share of threes, wasn't a great shooter, wasn't a great scorer in general, but he was always hustling and doing the right thing. When I talk about Derrick Jones and how he doesn't hustle, go watch clips of what Mo Harkless did during that Western Conference Finals run, and that's what I would hope to see from anybody that has to play in that kind of small forward role for us, or forward role where you're just there to be an athletic guy to do your job, and he was perfect for that. So that's where he's at, Sacramento Kings, and that's going to bring us to our next part of this, and that's the next part of the podcast. As we get closer to the season, we kind of wanted to wait and start doing this each episode. We're going to break down a month of the season. We're not going to spend too much time on it. We're just going to kind of briefly talk about it. I'm not going to sit here and go every single date. There's no need to do so. We can post, the date and the schedule up on the video chat here, and we'll go ahead and do that for you so you guys can at least see it.
Yeah.
So we'll post that up for October. So the first thing I have for October, we're going to open the year with the Kings, as I already mentioned, in case anybody's curious who we're playing opening night. It's going to be at home. We have a lot of home games to start the year. And this is what I noticed most about the opening schedule here is we play 4 out of our first 6. So 4 out of the 6 games in October are at the Moda Center. 2 games are against the Clippers to start the season off in October, and 1 against the Suns. So right off the bat, hot and heavy. One of the Clippers games is here in Portland. The Suns game is here in Portland. I would say it's pretty important to get off to a hot start, especially against a team that just won the West, and the Clippers team who everybody continues to think is going to win the West. Sure. And the fact that we get the Clippers twice without Kawhi Leonard it's a big deal. I mean, that's a big deal to try to get at least one of those wins against them. Hopefully you can pull off a 2-3 versus the Suns in the 2 games against the Clippers and get off to a hot start. What do you think?
Yeah, so like you said, Clippers twice, Charlotte, Memphis, Phoenix. Kind of a tough stretch to start the year off, but I do think that we will start strong as far as from a team chemistry standpoint. The starters are the same. I do think bringing Chauncey's system in will be tough because I think Chauncey's going to want us to play differently, and he's going to want energy on the defensive end, and that's going to be a big adjustment. But I hope that October we start strong. Those 2 Clipper games are going to be crucial. Those are going to be absolutely critical to how we start.
And don't keep in mind, the thing about that is this is Chauncey's old team. This is his 1 year of coaching experience. He's the assistant for the Clippers. So you got to think that he knows a little bit of how they're going to play. He knows how to probably slow down George a little bit more than we've been able to do in the past. Sure. He knows what he likes to do. that inside knowledge is going to be huge.
Yeah.
So
Good
that's
point.
do you have a game in specific there that you're really looking forward to watching? I mean, is it a young Memphis team that's up and
Yeah.
coming? We just talked about Dylan Brooks and what he does. The
Actually,
Hornets have added all sorts of pieces. They're one of the most athletic
mhm.
teams in the league. LaMelo Ball is just awesome. What do you
Yep.
think there?
I think you brought it up a little bit. So, okay, basically, real quick, Friday we play the Clippers at home, and then we go on the road Sunday and go to Charlotte as the on Halloween, so the
On
last day of the month.
Halloween, yeah.
Yeah, and I love Charlotte. I love the way they play. I think they've made really good moves. I think LaMelo is going to be a handful this year. If I'm going to draft him in fantasy for sure. I'm going to draft him early as hell because I think he's going to have a Luka type of jump this year where he's tough. And I want to. The biggest thing for me is defense. I want to see in these first 6 games what we can do defensively. What does it actually look like? Are we going to be going over and hedging screens? Are we going to be cutting off the pick and roll more? What is Chauncey's plan to immediately make us better? Because you can't just hope that Dame and CJ make a leap based off of hope and faith. What is he implementing to make us better? And I think that the guards, that CP3 and Booker game right there early on against Phoenix, that's going to be another one that's like, okay, what is Chauncey bringing as far as scheme goes to make us actually improve against these tough guards in the West?
Yeah, because you're starting right off the bat in the first 6 games. You're starting right off the bat against 3, probably the top 5 best young point guards, up and coming point guards in the league. With LaMelo Ball winning Rookie of the Year, with Ja Morant, you got De'Aaron Fox. Yeah. So you got 3 guys right off the bat. They always tend to give Lillard fits, CJ fits. Our guards have been a problem defensively forever, and then you throw in Chris Paul into the mix just for fun. I mean, you're starting off against 4 really, really, really good point guards. Phoenix is going to be a crazy test because we know what Booker can do. You got to assume Powell's going to be locked on him most of the game because CJ probably can't handle him. Yeah. So slowing them down, what are you going to do against Bridges and those other guys that they have that are athletic? That's going to be a fun game right off the bat. I think the Kings you take care of. I mean, we're at the moment. It's the home game. It's the first time the crowd's been back for an opener. I mean, for a while, they got to go obviously at the end of last year, but this will be.
It's going to be loud.
The first time we're going to have a bunch of people there. And then the athleticism that you get out of the Hornets, it's going to be crazy. Obviously, you play Paul George twice. So that's another one of those superstar players you're going to have to deal with. I think Chauncey really is going to have a good plan for the Clippers. If you can go 2-1 against the Clippers and the Suns in those 3 games, you're looking pretty good. Charlotte's going to be tough as it is. The Grizzlies and the Kings, you really should have no problem with at this point with this team that we have.
Yeah.
So I think 2-1 against the Clippers and the Suns. If you can pull out 2 of those, whether it's 2 against the Clippers and we lose to the Suns, I don't care. Go 2-1 in that week or that stretch, and we'll be pretty happy. And of course, we'll be here to break down the games.
Yep.
Doing the weekly recaps for you guys as we get to that point.
Yeah, and so I mean, we're going to be doing this for the rest of the off season, and then we're doing weekly recaps. We are kind of messing around with some new streaming. We might try to go with like a live form. I don't know yet, but I really hope that if you're sticking around, please subscribe because our channel is just going to grow and grow more as the year goes on.
More guests.
So many guests this year and so much content that we're going to be putting out for everybody. And it's been a lot of fun, but okay. So we've talked a lot about Larry Nance and we've talked a lot about Derek Jones getting shipped out. Is there any potential problem that you see other than like durability with this roster right now? Do you have anything that you'd like to see more of, less of? What are you most curious about when we start the year?
You caught me off guard with this.
I have kind of a thing that I want to talk about, but I'll let you go first.
All right. So I mean, outside of the durability, which is still, especially with the big men, this would be my number one concern about the team this year. But I would think that inexperience of some of the bench guys, that's a concern for me. I think Anthony Simons and I think Nasir Little have all the potential in the world. They're athletic, they can shoot, they can do a lot of stuff, but they didn't get to play much. Anthony got decent minutes throughout the year last year, but Stotts didn't really play them a lot. Didn't play in crunch time. Didn't play in playoffs. They were kind of out of the lineup. Anthony got some run here and there. But what are those 2 guys going to do? That to me is huge because I don't trust Macklemore or Schnell to come in and do much. I mean, Larry Nance is going to be great. I'm fine with that. He has tons of experience. He played 20-plus minutes a game for the last 6, 7, 8 years. So not worried about him. And Zeller's been a starter in this league. All over the place. Played for Charlotte. So Not worried about those guys. Not obviously worried about the starters, but can Anthony Simons and Nasir Little come in and play big minutes off the bench, fit with these other guys, and are they going to be able to hold up? Because that's a concern. Because McLemore and Snell, all they do is shoot. Mm-hmm. Nance has injury issues. Zeller has injury issues. It's going to be it's up to those guys to come in on the bench and really produce and improve and hit that stride that they are expected to hit as first round picks with the athleticism that they have. So I'm a little worried about that.
Sure.
And then size on your starting unit, I think that's going to be a problem no matter what. I think Norman Powell, CJ, and Lillard, I don't care what kind of defensive schemes you want to run up and put out there, being able to cover bigger players is going to be a problem. When you look at Denver and you look at guys like Bridges and all this stuff in Phoenix, and obviously you're going to have Golden State coming back with Klay Thompson and Draymond Green and the guys that they have now. So size to me, the Lakers are always an issue, is going to be a problem. I still worry about that. Nurk's really going to have to improve. He was good. He's been good, but he's going to have to improve. Rocco is going to have to do more man defense versus just the help defense to really slow some of these guys down. So we'll see. But those are my concerns for the season. Why do you ask?
Yeah, I think size is kind of what I was alluding to. I still think other than, the bigs, which I'm going to call the bigs for the rest of the year, I'm going to call them Nurk, Zeller, and Nance are the three bigs, right? Other than because you're going to
bigs we have,
exactly. So you're going to be running Nurk out there as really your only size above average size player. Everybody else is kind of a little bit below for their position. The other thing that I think durability is impossible. I mean, if you play fantasy sports, you know that injuries are impossible to predict. There are guys that are more likely to get injured because of the way that they play. I mean, Nurk is he's a ball of big energy who crashes into bodies all the time, and it leads to injuries. So it is what it is. But I think for me, generating offense outside of shooting, that is the other thing that I'm really curious about. What is Chauncey's plan? And we talked about this a couple pods ago where he said he didn't want us to just be chucking threes. And I agree with that. But what type of offense does he want us to generate? Because CJ doesn't really draw fouls. Powell can attack the rim. Nance can attack the rim off the bounce a little bit in a pick and roll situation, but I'm just really curious as to what the offense is going to be besides floor spacing and shooting, because it sounds like Chauncey wants to have some type of rim running, lob passing, cutting element. What that is, I want to see, and I want to see it fast. Like I want to see within the first 4 or 5 games, like what does the offense look like that's not the Stotts offense, if that makes sense to everybody.
No, it's gonna be a thing because you know that we're arguably one of the most athletic teams in the league at this point. I mean, there's teams that are definitely more athletic, but with Nasir Little and Anthony Simons on the bench, Powell can attack for his size. Obviously, Nance is a slam dunk runner up. So it's going to be interesting to see if you get Nurk in better positioning to really take advantage of his size. If you're going to pull him out and have him pass more to guys cutting around, like we talked about last week, but with Powell, his best attribute is obviously shooting the corner three, and he gets a lot of ability to attack the rim because guys have to run out on him, and he's good at getting around them. So it's going to be interesting to see. CJ and Dame are ISO scores. I'm sorry. Everybody has to get over this. We're going to pass so much more. Maybe, but it's not going to come from these two guys. I'm sorry. That's not what they're built to do.
I got concerns.
It's going to be interesting to see if they can do that. You're right. CJ doesn't draw fouls. Dame is going to do Dame stuff. He's going to walk up with the ball. He's going to figure out what the defense is doing right away, and he's going to assess quickly, and he's going to either shoot that three if the guy's off of him, or he's going to go around him if they're not, if they're playing up against them and they don't have center help. I'm sorry. That's what Dame does. That's why we love Dame. That's why Dame is what Dame is. You're not going to completely change things. You're going to work the offense around what Dame does well and integrate other things. So Chauncey's not going to come in and create this entirely different offense. It's just not going to happen. You're not going to change what your two star players do well. You're going to work around that, and you're going to evolve it a little bit, like a couple branches off of a tree here, but it's still going to be the same trunk at the end of the day. So we'll see. I agree with you. I think that's
you hit on it.
And you have two ISO scores that's their best attributes. I mean, you're going to continue to run into the same issue year in and year out. So
and that's kind of what I wanted to hit on. So I think that's good. I'm good with all that stuff, and I'm good on the October part of the schedule. What else did you want to talk about on this pod?
It's a new segment. Pretty stoked about this new segment today. We're trying this out. I'm inspired because I'm a nerd, and I'm a big Marvel guy. Love Marvel. Watch all the Marvel stuff. So there's a new show on Disney Plus called What If? And the entire premise is different random things that happen in the Marvel universe, all the movies that we watch, and what would happen if something different took place. If somebody else chose a different path. That's the whole premise, right? And it gives you a little story and a timeline. Fine.
Yeah.
I'm going to do that with the Blazers, my friend.
Yeah.
We've been talking about ranking our big what ifs for a while. We brought this up months and months ago. We were going to rank our like top 5. What if this would have happened, or biggest regrets, or whatever you want to put out there. But I decided to make it into a segment on a weekly basis or a bi-weekly basis, just for fun, to see what you can come up with. And let you tell me a story.
Okay.
My first what if, in an alternate reality, what if Greg Oden stayed healthy and became the center that we thought he would be out of college? Now, there's a lot that goes into this. All right. It's because we're not saying that he's going to be some mega superstar. We're saying if the Greg Oden that we got out of college during that era of the NBA would have stayed healthy and joined LaMarcus Aldridge and Brandon Roy, what would have happened? Now, keep in mind, I'm also putting the presentation out there that Roy was still going to have his injury concerns, because this is just strictly focusing on what would have happened if Greg Oden wouldn't have gotten.
Yeah. We're just redoing one Back to the Future.
Just one little thing. Yeah. What do you think would happen? It can be short. I don't need a whole huge novel. Yeah. But what do you think this team would have became?
I can't help but think this year was the perfect example, watching DeAndre Ayton, of why you take a center number 1 overall. And even in the modern NBA, DeAndre Ayton's ascension this year he's not a superstar, and I don't think DeAndre Ayton deserves a max contract. I think that he's a really good big that needs a guard like Chris Paul to maximize his efficiency and what he can do on both ends of the floor, right? Chris Paul shows up in Phoenix and says, I want to make this guy the best 5 I can make him, right? And I'm going to come in every day and I'm going to do everything I can to guide him. Now, if Greg Oden stays healthy, I think he has he's one tier above what DeAndre Ayton is on both ends of the floor. He's an absolute beast on the rim protection. He's like, in my opinion, kind of like a Rudy Gobert, an anchor of your defense who can protect the rim. He was a fantastic rebounder, a big body. He wasn't nearly as fast, athletic, and bouncy as a guy like Ayton is. So when you watch him on the offensive end of the floor, Ayton's running the floor with a lot more fluidity than Greg Oden was. But that, in my brain, is what I think of when I think of Greg Oden and the potential that he showed at Ohio State. And it's terrible that he had arthritic knees. It's terrible that he had the things happen to him that he did in his career, because he would have been a fantastic partner with Brandon Roy for even if Brandon Roy gets hurt in like year 5, year 6, even if Brandon has what happens to his knees, they have 3 or 4 years of legitimate title contention. And they were so good against Dirk and the Mavs and some of those teams, late Cavs, LeBron, early Miami, LeBron, those teams. It was crazy, man. And Greg Oden is one of the biggest what ifs. Obviously, everybody wants to do the Kevin Durant thing, but I don't even do that. I think Greg Oden made sense for that Blazers team and the era of basketball that they wanted to play. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. I think you had LaMarcus Aldridge, so you had a stretch 4 who can really step out and hit a bunch of shots, who was still a pretty good post scorer. Greg Oden, when he was on the floor for the brief times that he was dominant down low.
Yeah.
There was not a lot of players in the league at that time that was going to be able to slow him down when you got the ball down to him.
Yeah.
When you combine that with teams having to worry about Brandon Roy and LaMarcus Aldridge and pulling them away and allowing Greg Oden to get that ball down low and just, there's a lot of guys that would have stopped him. You look at some of the players at that time, Pau Gasol and the Lakers with Kobe was we watched Brandon Roy and Kobe Bryant go at it over and over. But to me, you have, and then don't forget, this is also the same team that had a young Nicholas Batum, because they were the same year. So
Rudy Fernandez.
You have Brandon Roy, LaMarcus Aldridge, and Greg Oden, and Travis Outlaw's probably still floating around. Steve Blake was on these teams. I honestly don't think there would have been anybody that would have stopped us. At least not until Roy really got hurt. The first few years, I honestly do. I honestly think the Blazers get at least 1 title. I'm sorry. It's healthy. With what Roy was able to do just by himself, if Oden got to maximize his full potential, it wouldn't have lasted long, because the league really transitioned into shooting after that. You got to remember, not too far after that was the Steph Curry, Klay Thompson kind of started the Golden State run, early 2010s. And then I think things would have really started to stretch out, and Oden would have been not useless. You're right. I mean, DeAndre Ayton isn't useless, but Chris Paul and Booker really brought that up to him and allowed him to do a lot better than what he was doing.
Yeah.
Odin to me would have probably turned into more of an Andre Drummond. I think he could have gotten 20 a night, 20 rebounds. I think it would have been less and less helpful on the defensive end because I don't think he had the speed to get out there. Now, he could have easily done what Gobert does, maybe.
Yeah.
I think the quickness and the shooting of the game would have kind of transitioned him out, just like a lot of teams at that point get transitioned out. But for a solid 5, 6, 7 years there, I think Portland having Odin and Roy and LaMarcus, I don't know too many teams that would have really honestly been able to slow them down. I mean, the size that they had. I mean, Dirk, like you put out there, was out there, and he was one of the best power forwards at the time. Garnett was running heavy. But I still think that Odin and LaMarcus would have put so much pressure on them, and then to have a guard that was a superstar during his run, and very easily probably could have been, if not the best shooting guard in the league, right there with Kobe, was just behind him at that point. So yeah, it would have been fun. So that's it. The what if. I'm going to try to come up with some more of these.
Love it.
They can be kind of quick, and they're all going to end hopefully in more positive things. Maybe not. It could be a dark universe that I throw you into. I think the Greg Oden stuff.
That's funny.
It would have been weird because you probably wouldn't have gotten Lillard. You know, your team would have been doing different things. You would have been up there. You wouldn't have got a high lottery pick. I don't know. So it's all over the place with that. But I'm glad you were able to answer that for me. And then I think we have one quick thing to talk about. And I don't want to spend too much time on this because it's the last thing I have for this episode.
Sure.
We've talked about this more times than I'm happy to talk about. It's come up over and over and over again. But it's the Ben Simmons stuff.
Sure.
So it came out again. Ben Simmons done. He's not going back to Philly. He's holding out. He says, Philly, I'm done. I don't want to be here. I'm holding out if you don't trade me. All right. So to catch everybody up on some quick bullet points, he basically came out a couple of weeks ago and tried to force his way to a California team. He said, I want to go to a California team. I do not want to go to Toronto. I do not want to go to Chicago, I think was the other one. And most importantly, I do not want to go to Portland. Named us. Said the situation here was not good. This is obviously in the midst of the Lillard stuff, the trade talks, everything that came up with Damian. So he didn't want to come here, watch Damian Lillard leave, and then be stuck with a team that he didn't feel was going to be good. Yeah. Okay. There are your bullet points. Okay. Now, you had some news that you shared with me this morning that kind of maybe potentially changes some of what I just said. We can share that news.
So he's so mad at Ben Simmons is so mad at the Philadelphia right now and the Sixers in general that he said he would take a trade to any team.
Anywhere.
And now I don't know that I 100% believe that. I still think he's trying to work his sources and he's trying to get to where he wants to go. But the problem is Philadelphia loses leverage. Philadelphia is full of crap because they're losing all their leverage like right away, right? So what happens is when Simmons demands a trade, they lose a lot of the ability to take back players and picks and everything that they want. I mean, Ben Simmons was an all-star and he is a defensive player of the year. So he has value, but the value drops if they know that Anthony Davis wants his way out. Right. And so they're trying to, I think that they're going to try to partner with him to figure out how to get him out of there the best way they can. Now, his agent, Rich Paul, is a savage and he is going to get Ben Simmons out of there. I don't know what the best player. I think that what happens is when Ben Simmons says he'll go to any team, Blazers Twitter fires up and says, well, what's the best player they could get for Ben Simmons? And everybody says CJ McCollum is the best player right now that can help their team win. Now, do they want a 29, 30-year-old on a max deal that makes $35 million a year? Probably not. Like I wouldn't for Ben Simmons, but I mean, if you want to maximize Embiid's window and there's a very few offers on the table, I just think that the Blazers fans are the ones keeping this alive. And I think we probably just need to let this dream die and stop talking about it, to be honest with you.
So there's a couple things here. I disagree with you. I do think they would love to have CJ McCollum because he gives them everything that they don't have. True. Yeah, he's 29. He's going to be 30. He's going into this stretch, and he has a contract that's pretty large for the next couple of years.
Yeah.
But they were already paying Ben Simmons it anyway. It doesn't do anything to them contract-wise. Contractually?
Contractually.
Weird. I don't know why I tried to say that weird. But like you said, Embiid was an MVP caliber player this year. They are going to try to maximize that for the next couple of years. They don't give a crud about age right now. I'm sorry, they don't. And why would they? I mean, if you're trying to win, you go get a guard that you think can come in and put 25, 26 points up a night and run your offense for you and maximize the best that Embiid can give you. Great. Problem is, and some fans have said it, and you kind of just said it in a way, but a lot of fans think that CJ's not available. That's the problem. Is Neil's come out and said CJ's not available. So when it comes down to the best player they could potentially get at this point, CJ. Nobody's saying that except Blazers fans. Neil come out and said we're not trading CJ. We want to run this roster back. So now he's no different than Jaylen Brown or Bradley Beal or Zach LaVine. I mean, name the guys that are out there that probably aren't available. They're in the same boat. There's not really a name that's available for Ben Simmons right now, right off the bat, that has come up. I mean, yes, I think the media, when this first came up way back, however long ago after playoffs got over, it was all like it made so much sense. Portland, we just got blown out by Denver. We lost 4-2. Oh, no. So CJ, they got to make a move. Oh, yeah. Oh, Philadelphia, same thing. So it made sense. CJ and Ben Simmons was like all over the place. It were wild with it. And then obviously it's come up over and over again. And now with Philly getting desperate, people are bringing back CJ's name because they still think Portland needs Ben Simmons. Yes, Ben Simmons would probably be just fine on this team. He'd have to play small forward. You run him at small forward. I would imagine because of his size, and you put Powell at the shooting guard, maybe you leave it the same. I don't think it really matters. I mean, they're pretty transitional at that point. You do get one of the best defensive players in the league. You don't necessarily need the offense because you brought back Powell. But him and Rocco, they put some dampers on your offense for sure. I mean, Dame's going to have to be superstar. Powell's going to have to do better than 20 points a game to make up the difference.
Yeah.
But you do get, like we talked about with Nurk and Nance and the guys that we have the ability to pass the ball, you can take advantage of what Ben Simmons does best and get him near the rim, get him in opportunities to really score where he does actually excel. I mean, the guy puts up points when he's in the situation where he gets one-on-one, he gets in the paint, he's really, really hard to stop.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's out there. I don't think it happens. I don't think CJ's on the table right now. I think a lot of us wish he would be. I still don't care for him.
Yeah.
And I'm more willing to do it now that Norman Powell is locked up because I think that he can give you the numbers that CJ was giving you, 20, 21 points a game. He can hit the three at the same clip, if not better. He does attack better. He's really, honestly, a better CJ. Yeah. And then I think that Ben Simmons gives you, for the same money, just a way to start slowing down the guards of the NBA and these other wings of the NBA, the Kawhi Leonards, the Paul Georges. You make life difficult on them in a playoff series. So I'm for it. I don't think it'll happen. I'm for it. Just want to touch on that because it's been all over the Twitter again and the media. And so that's another step into the Ben Simmons area. It almost just needs to happen at this point. Like I just need to close.
I honestly think what's going to end up happening is his value is going to drop to a point where he gets sent to a place like the Knicks for like Quickly and a bunch of other stuff. I think it's going to get to a point where like they're going to try to get De'Aaron Fox, they're going to try to get CJ, but I don't think the Blazers honestly want Ben Simmons, and I understand why they don't, because with this current core, you know what your ceiling is, and you know that if Powell, Nance, some of these guys, if we can stay healthy, I'm all for Ben Simmons, but I understand from the Blazers' perspective, the risk in making that move isn't really worth it. And Ben Simmons did look terrible in the playoffs the last 2 years, like literally maybe cost them multiple series with Embiid. So I don't think it's going to happen. And if it does happen, it ain't Portland. Like he's going somewhere else.
I don't know if I want his attitude here. I know the reason that I think it was so important that you told me this morning about him saying he'll go anywhere. It's important because it supposedly opens the door for Portland, which is why people are all over it. But the dude's attitude sucks.
Yep.
It sucks. I understand that Philly's probably not the best atmosphere. I don't trust Embiid as a leader. I don't think Philly has a leader, especially not a leader like Dame.
No.
Portland's just a different place. Philly fans are some of the worst fans in the NBA. And really all of sports. Sorry, Philly. I don't know if there's anybody from Philly that ever watches us. Probably not. But I'm sorry, you guys are like notorious for booing and the way you treat your players. And I don't get me wrong, if they deserve it, they deserve it. But Portland, we don't do that. We don't. Raymond Felton is an exception, but outside of Raymond Felton, we don't do that. So I think he would be a completely different attitude change for him. But the guy seems to have an ego right now that's bigger than his play. I'm not completely convinced if he gets traded here, he's going to be unhappy and he holds out. He says, I don't want to be in Portland either. Keep moving me around. And the worst thing that you want to do is get rid of a fan favorite that plays on CJ's caliber for a guy that's not going to want to play for you. Maybe he tries it for half a year and gets mad at his usage. He doesn't buy into Chauncey. He doesn't want to be the second fiddle to Dame. Who knows? I don't know, but the stuff that we're seeing out of Philly is a major red flag.
Yeah.
It's public. It's a problem. It's not just rumors about how he is in the locker room. We are seeing it out there, and I just don't know if you want that kind of toxic behavior in Portland. But
I get it, man.
People
Well,
are all over it, so
we'll see. And then the next couple of weeks, I mean, we're gonna have another show next week, and who knows what will happen between now and then. Like and sub, please follow along. We are definitely going to be on Twitter a lot more over the next month. So if you want to, it is twitter.com/talkrip. And other than that, man, come back next week. We'll talk about November.
Break down the November schedule for you guys. I'll come up with a new fun what if. I don't know. We'll keep it going. We'll see if you guys like it. I'll keep it up for a little bit at least. And then, we're kind of ramp up. We're going to have preseason before y'all know it. And then regular season less than 2 months away. So,
yeah. All right, man. Well, that's it.
All right. That's it. It was a pleasure as always. Thank you again for everybody for the likes, the subscribes, all that good stuff. Spread the word. We appreciate the support, and we will talk to you guys soon.
We out. Peace.